Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first introductory webinar organized by STEM Fellowship for the 2025 Inter-University Health Data and AI Inquiry Program, was this year's theme on Aging Powerfully, an AI blueprint for chronic disease management and the social determinants of longevity. Today, we'd like to welcome two distinguished guests who are global experts on the science of aging, the new longevity economy, and how the world is thinking about graying societies and aging populations. This is one of the most important transformations of our time, and our aim today is to give you a very introductory but fascinating overview of where things are headed, all with the goal of guiding you to think disruptively about your project for this year's program. So to begin, we're thrilled to welcome Anne-Marie Wright. Anne-Marie Wright is a builder and catalyst for positive change, accomplished in growing and transforming healthcare organizations by harnessing her capabilities as a forward-thinker strategist and planner, inclusive facilitator, innovator, and people and ideas connector. Uniquely, she brings an uncompromising person and patient-focused lens to all of her work. Today, she's a president of Element Strategy Incorporated and the co-founder of You Are Unlimited, an advisory and communications group working in the field of aging and longevity.
Thank you, Vikram. Hello, Anna. Wonderful to be with the STEM team today. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, and we're very excited to have you today. We'd also like to welcome Dr. Bruno Battistini, an adjunct professor and lecturer at the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Health Sciences, where he teaches courses on computer-assisted health applications and AI/ML. Dr. Battistini is also the principal and senior advisor at his own consulting firm, North Star Innovation. Previously, he served as the National Executive Director at the largest ISED CIHR-funded clinical trial training platform and programs. He has also held leadership roles, including director at one of the largest preclinical CROs and president, CEO, and scientific director of the New Brunswick Health Research Foundation, among many others. Definitely check out his LinkedIn for the full story.
Thank you, Anna, as I am pleased to be present with you today.
Amazing. So for this year's Inter-University in Health Data AI Inquiry Program, students are going to be presenting their research projects at the Eastern and Western Canada conferences in July 2025, where they're able to share their findings with peers, but also experts from both industry and academia. So the goal of this webinar today is really to highlight key topics and themes to help guide students as they select and develop their projects as we approach the conference dates.
Yes, exactly. And to get us started today, let's start, I think, with the core of this field, which of course is aging. So, is aging just a natural process that we should all accept, or is it a disease we can treat?
Well, Anna, yes and no. It remains very much an open debate with arguments for and against it. Aging itself may be considered as a disease, but comes with a number of complex processes that are age-related, such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, arthritis, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes, and so on. But aging involves molecular and cellular damages that can be diagnosed, can be measured, can be targeted with therapies. So aging being a disease, one can accelerate drug development and regulatory approval, justify clinical trials for anti-aging intervention, encourage healthcare system to support preventive treatment. So, can we fight aging? Yes. Can we stabilize aging? Yes. Can we slow it down? Yes. Can we even reverse it? Yes. Some call it even reverse engineering longevity. The best approach would be to delay aging by implementing healthy related best practices. What about your nutrition? What about exercise? What about the environment in which we live? While we can now intervene on genetic and metabolic elements as we push back the frontiers in genetics. But fundamentally, aging is universal, it's natural, it's a normal biological process. We can further debate about the ethics of accessibility and social implication if we define aging as a disease.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That this kind of is like a active debate. And you mentioned this idea of healthy aging. Could you both maybe tell us a little bit more about what that means and kind of how that relates to the broader idea of longevity?
Yeah, terminology and words used in this space are oftentimes used interchangeably and can sometimes be very unhelpful and confusing as well. So let me start with the WHO definition of aging, and they talk very much about aging in terms of functional capacity, not so much in terms of demographics or in terms of chronological age. The example I always use is you can have a very high capacity 80-year-old and perhaps a not so high capacity 40-year-old. So by using demographics to define healthy aging, it can lead you to some very false conclusions. Today, we're living in what we call the age of aging better. The idea that we're living longer, but the question on the table is, are we living healthier? And that question itself has actually given rise to a new concept called health span. This means years of life that remain serious disease free as long as possible. Simply stated, healthy aging relates to the concept of lifespan and health span. Are we living longer but healthier? There's a lot written about this, and this is where the science is headed right now. This is where the media writes extensively about concepts of longevity, and this is why the terminology can be sometimes confusing. So longevity actually reflects the concept that we're living longer and healthier, and not just in the traditional healthcare sense. Bruno referenced this a little bit, the idea that health is taking on a broader focus and includes what we might call social determinants, things like financial health and wellness, things like environmental health and wellness. All of these things are being bundled into this concept of longevity. And the bottom line is that longevity looks at vibrancy of aging. Longevity looks at aging as an opportunity relative to the very rather negative and cost-focused definitions of aging that exist in the marketplace today. And later on in this podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of ageism and how that can influence the thinking on some of your projects.
Yeah, thank you, Anne Marie. I think that was a very interesting overview. And I do want to talk a little bit more about what you mentioned about health kind of taking on this broader focus. Because nowadays, it seems like when we talk about longevity, it isn't just biology at play. So, what social factors like diet and environment, which I think you mentioned, shape how long and well people live?
Well, biology is key when you think about your genetic. I was actually educated in the fact that the biology and your genes were about 50% of who you are. And actually, however, and I look forward to invite you to look at the Danish twin study, seem to be establishing that only 20% of how long the average person lives is determined by genes. So where you live, what you eat, and more are the next fundamental elements. Research reported that pending where you live, and I'm referring here to an extensive report in the US, as there might be others, revealed that some regions in the US have a much higher life expectancy than others. For example, if you live in an industrial area where you can measure air pollution, the quality of the drinking water, that may be compromised. Similarly, where what you eat has also an impact. We all heard or read about the Mediterranean diet, and our region in Europe and other places of the world have less chronic disease when they age, thus improving the chance of longevity. Other elements we should consider is how you live. What kind of work do you practice when it comes to handling stress and having enough sleep? That may be either caused by work or familial or societal condition. Unemployment, we came to discuss financial, family stress, and so on. A nice summary can be found in the blue zone with an S, which are places where the answers lied with people, lifestyle, and environment as evidence-based denominators.
Thank you.
Just to reinforce a point about blue zones, Bruno, there's a Netflix series on this and could be a great reference point for some of the folks watching this podcast. It's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you both, and thanks, Henry, for jumping in. I think, yeah, you provide a lot of great resources, and I encourage our listeners to definitely take a look in that in a little bit more detail to really understand the scope of this topic here. You mentioned truly the importance of the environment and lifestyle changes, but I'm wondering if you could perhaps elaborate a little bit more on if these lifestyle changes in the environment in which you may grow up can actually offset genetic risks for some chronic conditions like, I don't know, heart disease, diabetes, and kind of just the role in which of how important they are in managing these diseases.
They can, absolutely, Vikram. Lifestyle changes can significantly offset genetic risk for chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease, as they are crucial for long-term management as well. There's a growing body of evidence of research showing that genes are not our destiny. For example, even if someone carries genetic markers for type 2 diabetes, adopting a healthy lifestyle, like maintaining a balanced diet, staying physically active, managing stress, getting quality sleep, can cut their risk dramatically, sometimes even by more than 50%. That same goes for heart disease. Studies that show that people with a high genetic risk who follow healthy habits have much lower rates of cardiovascular events compared to those with similar risk who don't. Lifestyle actually modifies how genes are expressed. It's called a field known as epigenetics. Importantly, these behaviors aren't just preventive, they're also powerful tools for managing chronic condition. Consistent exercise, weight management, and nutrition can reduce medication dependence, improve your quality of life, and slow disease progression. So while we cannot at this stage change our genes, we can change how they show up in our lives. And that is empowering. We could expand on the subject and talk about each and every one age clocks here. How old are we really based on a series of biomarkers? Check this out by yourself.
Thanks, Dr. Bruno. It sounds like there are a lot of different influences on aging, probably things that Vikram and I should even be thinking about at our ages. But talking a little bit more about the scientific field, I'm wondering how researchers specifically should start thinking about and maybe incorporating these factors into their work.
Well, researchers have already started to think about the relations that exist. Until recently, they were used to be working by disciplines or in silos. Now we realize that social, mental, physical health, per their sciences, are components of a much more complex and inclusive environment. Influences on aging that will impact longevity or living a long, healthy life include very important measures of financial elements that will impact how you focus on nutrition, for example.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about this like financial element as just thinking about even like our parents, like me and Anna's, when they were our age, I think people were living a lot less compared to what they are now. People are living longer, people are living healthier lifestyles now. So I'm wondering maybe if you could talk about how this kind of shift is impacting society and perhaps the economy more specifically.
I absolutely love this question. And I love the fact that STEM is focusing on longevity and aging. This is one of the most transformative changes of our generation. And it's the generation that is developing initiatives and projects in this space that can change the world. It's fundamental. This is called a mega trend. Longevity is transformative. So compared to our parents' generation, people are indeed living longer and arguably have healthier lifestyles thanks to advances in technology and medicine and things of that nature. This concept of longevity is reshaping everything from the workplace to health systems to economic models. And in that idea is it's given rise to something that is called the longevity economy. The longevity economy is predicted to be a $30 trillion industry, and I'm deliberately choosing the word industry by 2030. This is an industry that will be the third largest economic force behind China and the US. This is how big this is going to be. So, on the economic side of things, and Bruno and I could talk extensively for a long period of time around this, we're giving you just some short stories around this. It means that people are actually going to be working longer, whether by choice or by necessity. And if people are going to be working longer, think about some of the needs that have to be accommodated and changed to support that. So, for example, multi-generational workforces, where the value of all generations is celebrated and uplifted. Think about questions around retirement systems and financial security. If I'm going to live longer, is my money going to live or go far enough? From a societal point of view, loosely stated, we're seeing something called the rise of third chapter. And this really means that decades after what is traditional retirement, people are still looking for purpose. They're looking for the ability to contribute very productively. And all kinds of new innovation has risen to support that. As a simple example, the idea of lifelong learning is on fire on the global stage. The idea that people over 60 are returning to universities for secondary degrees and age-friendly environments are being constructed, particularly in academic environments, to support all of that. But aging and longevity also means that we need to invest more in chronic disease management, caregiving infrastructures, for example, and age-friendly policies that support the population. Because if we don't do that, we're going to risk greater health disparities. We're going to risk social isolation concepts and arguably unsustainable healthcare costs. So where there's lots of very positive things that are happening, we have to be aware societally of the economic impacts of aging societies as well. So in short, longevity is not just about adding years to life, it's changing how we live healthier. And that definition of healthy is quite broad today and very, as Bruno and I have been communicating, very much focused on social determinants and not just physical health.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you, Anne-Marie. It seems like I'm kind of excited for the future, but I definitely think that kind of all around we do need to start preparing for it based on what you've said. And to switch gears a little bit, I think you mentioned that our parents are living longer and generally healthier lives, partially because of the technological advancements that we've seen over the last couple of decades. So I want to ask both of you, are there any emerging technologies or research advancements that you are especially excited about in terms of sort of maybe disrupting aging?
Honestly, this is the most exciting time of my life. Professional life, I've been around for, as you can see from my gray hair, a number of decades. And as you're saying, Anna, absolutely exciting time to be around and witness and being part of innovation that will increase our longevity. It's like, the speed of the chip at the end of the day, and we will get to that a bit later on, artificial intelligence and machine learning. So the best one when it comes to new technologies is the one that are disruptive. We talk about disruptive innovation. That's exactly the point. They're the one that most difficult to be adopted by society, however. The public healthcare and home care systems. But at the end of the day, we have no choice to adapt because if we continue on the current path, what we're doing will not be sustainable because right now, and within the next 5 to 8 years, we're going to reach the peak of people age above 65 years old. And they will be representing 25% of the population. And that is going to be the peak in 8 years. So it's going to be another decline over the next 8 years after that. For the next 16 years, we'll be getting to the 25% up and down at the end of the day. So let's start with the list that which I can talk over for several hours actually, and on each of them: genetic therapies, stem cell treatments, nanotechnologies, artificial intelligence powered diagnostic and care, wearable technologies, and other what we call Internet of Medical Things, IOMT, and nutrigenomics. I've just told our students all the field that they can prepare and select from and prepare for their presentation at the end. But my favorite, and I have more than one, I'll be biased, but for today, is it about stem cell at the end, which we have the potential to repair or regenerate damaged tissues and organs, offering hope for treating age-related condition.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bruno. And you mentioned this idea of like AI, machine learning in aging research. I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that, as I know our students are very eager to be applying these AI methods to their research.
Oh, this is basically I just finished teaching at the university this past winter about AI and computer sciences. There's a lot to need to be validated regarding AI. Let be clear about that. This is an emerging field which has been there for a couple of years. There's two key elements that they both relate to big data and real world data. Number one, AI-driven diagnostic. AI can analyze vast amounts of data much faster than I can do. What I can do that will take me a week to look at different data, publication, and things like that, and database, the AI can do it in a few hours. So analyzing vast amounts of data, including medical images. This is the one which is mostly advanced because the way that you do the algorithm for machine learning is exactly much faster to do that with medical images, as we say, and they are for analysis. Genetic information, when you have your genome, I mean, when we started the genome project 30 years ago, you would run a genome, it would take you several days, it would cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. Now you can run it within half a day, and it's going to cost you $400, for example. So genetic information can be all put there. Lifestyle factor that can be basically looked at to identify patterns. The way about AI is about where you are and where you could be if you don't change the way you do things. So we can identify patterns and help you to correct that, predict the risk of age-related diseases, and allowing for earlier intervention and prevention. Number two, powering care with Internet of Medical Things. I mentioned that. We can talk about that for hours again, but Internet of Medical Things, there's many things as well. How to monitor your basically vital sign, blood pressure, your glucose levels, oximetry, and the list goes on of all these technology at the end of the day. And they're producing a vast whole amount of new health matrix at the same time. And that would be the best scenario to be included into your electronic medical record or electronic health record, EMR, EHR. So once you have all these data coming in, they could be analyzed much faster by AR because they're tangible numbers as well. You have on top of that also virtual assistant that can be helpful, chatbots, medical devices are basically the ones that are the Internet of Medical Things. So think about, and this is for our students, talk about wearable technology, detecting falls, and alert caregivers as well. So AI is here, is exploding. We just have to be careful that they don't suffer from hallucination. But if they're well algorithm, well basically defined machine learning, they will be a tremendous help in the very near future. Actually, it's already happening as we speak right now.
Bruno, that's a really excellent overview. I do want to add, as part of this podcast, that this oftentimes gets talked about in the healthcare sector, but understand that what Bruno is suggesting has applications in the financial service industry. It has applications in the technology industry. It has applications, for example, in how we live. And this is a very important concept in terms of how you define your project. Think broadly, think beyond healthcare, because longevity, as I said, is societal, and all aspects
Mhm.
of society will be impacted by longevity.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Bruno, and thanks, Anne Marie. I think it's really exciting that there are so many different ways that you can look at this and form a project on aging and longevity. Hopefully, that gave our students something to chew on and something to think about as they develop their projects. And I think we've talked quite a bit about technology and AI, so I do want to think back to sort of the social perspective on aging. I think there is very often a stereotype that aging is linked to frailty or reduced productivity, but clearly that doesn't reflect the whole picture. So, how can we shift the narrative to represent the realities of aging as it is today?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question, Anna. And to me, this is the most fundamental, basic thing that we want to communicate today. Aging is not what you think it is. Your traditional, stereotypical definitions of aging are outdated. And in fact, globally, there's rise to the discriminatory practice of ageism. This has been buried for a long period of time. And ageism, while it affects all generations, the literature is very focused today on what it means for people, particularly over 50. And the idea that people over 50 are kind of done, that it's a very negative take on aging, that, oh my gosh, you're 50, you're kind of frail. If I see one more picture of people running on a beach, or it's all very stereotypical how we think about aging. So we want to leave a very clear message here that if you can shift and move away from those stereotypes, particularly those stereotypes that focused on the negative or what's lost part, into an opportunity of what's possible, given the new mentality around aging, given this WHO definition around capacity, where an 80-year-old can be as vibrant as a 50-year-old or even a 30-year-old if you think in capacity terms. Aging today is actually changing um, the landscape and how we think about second careers. Highest proportion of entrepreneurs in this country, women over 57. The idea that caregiving is a very vibrant new need in this world. The idea that lifelong learning is coming onto the screen. So this whole idea that people are going to live longer and live more capably, live more purposefully. The rise of meditation, the rise of mindfulness has been globally driven by this audience in these times. Lifestyle habits are changing, preventative care is changing, all to say, don't think demographically. Remove the blinders that you may have around ageism and stereotypes. I've been a long-time marketer, and I think that the narrative in this space needs to change from a marketing point of view. I referenced earlier, let's not use negative images of how we think people are. Let's use more positive images and on how older adults are mentoring younger adults. Let's elevate everyone's wisdom using intergenerational capacities. We want to move away from communication that today is arguably very ageist. Marketing community can do that. You folks can do that by thinking differently about what you're creating for. Systems are being reimagined. Healthcare has to deal with this issue. There's a strong issue of ageism in the healthcare community, particularly for people who are over 65. Think about education. Wouldn't it be great to sit beside somebody who's 65 in a classroom who equally wants to learn? Aging is a very dynamic phase of life, and through projects like this, ageism can be a very, very vibrant, powerful time for creation.
So we need to embrace longevity. I mean, look, the numbers are epidemiologically that within the last 50 years, we went from 69 years old to 82 years of life expectancy. Right now in Canada, we've got over 11,000 people who are centenarians. Imagine that. And that means your generation, Vikram and Anna, will most probably within the next 15 years, one generation, we're going to be between 95 to 100 years old. Life expectancy and research and projection are that we will be at 120 years old. And actually, the body, because of stem cell technology, regenerative medicine, and so on, we can even reach 137 years old, maybe by the mid next century as well. So this is all to be taken into consideration, how it will be democratized at the end of the day, that everybody can access that. That remains very much important as a discussion for society at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for introducing that. And I think this is a very exciting field, clearly, as we sort of see an increase in both lifespan and life expectancy as a whole. I mean, our students are obviously at the cusp of just starting their research for this program, but if they kind of want to continue in this research, how could they get involved on a more like larger scale?
So let's think about all of you students. Let's think about aging, healthy aging, all good. But at the same time, think about what Anne-Marie was saying about longevity is much more than that. The social and health research, we've been doing that for the past decade and more, not only in Canada, but elsewhere, and they're quite very good at it. Now has come the time with you to basically mobilize that knowledge and basically translate that knowledge. We need to integrate what we have learned from social and health research and others, feel that basically we can move along this further into tangible application. And it has economic impact, like Anne-Marie was saying. And the use of artificial intelligence in all aspects of things will be good. So we have all these diagnoses with Internet of Medical Things, coming back to that, all these connected medical tools, medical device, that there is dozens of them that you can take and basically go deep into analyzing how it can be generating data, how you're going to be directly connecting all these tremendous amount of data to your EMR and EHR, and how you can be assisted by AI for faster analysis and establishing correlation for better diagnosis and treatment regimen. So I'm excited with you, all of us entering this evolution. Call that a revolution per longevity. So medical and health researcher, yes, you are part. But then think about that. I mean, think about you're having your major course, even medical school or health sciences and so on. But that includes computer scientists, that includes data analysts, that includes economists, that includes basically also financials. So all these are elements of research. And again, we need to move and apply, mobilize, and translate that research. But these are all the field while you're thinking about classical registration at the university, college and university. At the same time, you will have a side interest in doing some coding and programming and all these kind of things at the same time. So have this open vision about your future.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Bruno and Anne-Marie. You've given me, I know, a lot to think about. I know you've given our guests and listeners a lot to think about as well, especially as they start to develop their projects and prepare for our conferences in July. So I'm wondering, as we're just approaching the end of this, if you have any key messages that students should really focus on as they start working on their projects and preparing.
You're right. This is a very big subject, and we're trying to tackle it in about a 30-minute podcast. So it's something we hope to talk more with you about. But let me leave you with maybe 4 key ideas that will help guide some of the work that you're about to embark on. So first, remember that longevity isn't just about living longer, it's about living better and healthier. So I'd like you to read about, embrace the concept of health span. Lifespan equals health span, health span equals lifespan. So that's number 1. Number 2 is biology isn't the whole story. Social determinants, things like diet, community, income, environment, all of those things have a massive impact around how we age. And this is a very ripe field for innovation. Number 3, and Bruno talked extensively about this, lifestyle changes are very powerful. In our mind, we know that diet's a good thing. In our mind, we know that exercising is a good thing. But the science is telling us that they can help manage genetic risks and chronic disease in very meaningful, sustainable ways. And this is where AI can particularly play a very large role. And the 4th thing is I want to go back to remove any stereotypical associations that you think you have about aging. Do you know about aging? Do you think you know about aging? Do you really know about aging? Think about aging as an opportunity. It's a very vibrant time of life for people over 50, particularly. And in fact, today's 5-year-old will likely live to be over 100 based on science and technology. So we're not just talking about older adults, we're actually talking about very significant societal change. So the most important thing is remove what you think you know around aging, see it as an opportunity, see it as a very powerful platform from which you can innovate and invent. And that's why That's why we're very, very excited about the theme you've chosen. for your projects this year. I know on behalf of Bruno and I, we wish you much, much success with that, and we're excited to see what you come up with.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. That was excellent. I think it's given all of us a lot to think about and really dispelled some of the things that I even thought I knew about aging and longevity. And I'm sure the same can be said for all of our student listeners. But yeah, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much again, Anne-Marie and Dr. Bruno, for joining us today and sharing your insights on healthy aging and longevity. It's clear to me, and I think to all of us, that the future of aging is really full of possibilities, and we're really grateful to have had your perspective on that as experts in the field. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We really hope that this webinar has inspired all of you and given you plenty of material to think about as you develop your projects for the Inter-University Health Data and AI Inquiry Program. Until next time.